In the remote hills of southwest China, these coffins clinging perilously to cliffs contain the key to the mysterious tribe known as the Bo people, annihilated in a bloody massacre 400 years ago. Who were the Bo? Why did they hang their dead on cliffs, and how did they do it? Is it because, as legend tells us, they could fly? Now a scientific journey is underway to solve an archaeological mystery, to separate fact from legend, and to uncover the secrets and perhaps the very face of the Bo people. On the other side of this remote ravine, perched hundreds of feet above the riverbed, is one of the greatest mysteries in all of China. The hanging coffins of the Bo people. The Bo tribe have become legendary for their phenomenal habit of burying their dead in these impossible vertical cemeteries.
When I first visited, I was strictly coming in as an explorer with a sense of trying to discover something that perhaps the rest of the world don't know. We realized that, hey, here's something that is unique and mysterious. As someone from the 21st century, to even imagine remotely that hundreds of years ago, 1,000 years ago, these people here were able to pretty much freehand climb these cliffs, putting a huge weight on the cliff face. It's just unthinkable.
The Bo were wiped out in a massacre by the Ming Dynasty in the 16th century. They left no written records, and the only remaining clues to this extraordinary tribe are their precarious hanging coffins. How Man has sent an expedition team to gather new evidence about the hanging coffins and the Bo people, their customs and traditions. Did any of the Bo survive the massacre? Do the Bo have living descendants today? The focus of the expedition is here, some 1,500 miles from the major city of Beijing, in northern Yunnan and southern Sichuan, the heart of what was once Bo country. Archaeological investigators from the China Research and Exploration Society, along with our film crew, are first heading for one of the most spectacular coffin locations ever found, Doushaguan. The cliff at Doushaguan is over 700 feet tall, and wedged in a crack right in the middle is a cluster of wooden coffins. No one has ever managed to reach these coffins. The expedition team is eager to climb the cliff and see what clues lie inside. Liu Hong is the explorer whose job it is to get everyone up to the coffins. And Dr. Ji Xueping is head of the expedition.
It's very difficult to study this coffin size. You need huge amounts of funding, and you have to take a lot of safety precautions. So over the years, there hasn't been a great deal of research on the coffins.
Nice rhythm, nice rhythm.
Before Ji Xueping can even think about getting to the coffins, he must first send Liu Hong and Roger Graham, the safety officer, to check out the route. Even crossing the river is a challenge.
Okay, now we've got to pedal hard.
It looks peaceful enough right now, but flash floods are frequent in these remote mountains of Yunnan.
Okay, we're beached. Oh, I can see one of the coffins there. So I'm going to go up here and then cut across there. Doesn't look too bad from here, but shall we have a look?
The reason I joined the expedition was to find out who put this hanging coffin up there. What is inside? Who did they belong to? These questions are all part of the mystery and greatly intrigue me.
Hey, Leah, come here for a sec. How you doing?
This way is not so steep.
Let's have a look.
Yeah.
But even for experienced climbers with modern equipment, this is a hazardous route, let alone for Ji Xueping and the other researchers.
They're not going to get up here. No way. Roger to Harry. It's seriously loose, and it's going to be lethal if I go much further.
Copy. If you don't have the equipment with you, then don't attempt to climb it.
I think we turn around because I can go, but if I fall because of a loose rock, it's going to be death.
But somehow the Bo people managed to scale these heights with no climbing equipment and carrying a 500-pound coffin.
The difficulty in getting a coffin up there seems insurmountable given the terrain. It's very crumbly, it's very steep, it's very high. I don't know how they did it safely. I mean, they may have lost a few people along the way. I don't know whether that mattered back then, but I would say that it would have been extremely difficult and dangerous.
The Bo people were able to achieve this amazing feat during the Ming Dynasty. Today, our expedition team failed. To find success, they must head for a new coffin site, deeper into the mountains.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the trip.
How on earth did the Bo manage to hang their coffins 300 feet up the side of a sheer cliff over 1,000 years ago?
I'm always very inquisitive. And of course, the first question asked was, how did they do it? You know, how can they put up these hundreds of pounds coffins? Stylistically, there are a number of different ones. But still, the lower part is dug up from one piece of wood, one piece of timber, which means that it will be very heavy.
No one knows exactly how the Bo managed to heave this great weight halfway up a sheer cliff. Some say they waited until the rivers were so high they could just float up. For others, the only solution is that the Bo people could fly. 1,000 years ago, all that was available to the bow was an axe, hammer and chisel, wood, rope, and manpower. Somehow, with these simple tools, they managed this extraordinary task. What is clear is this: the bow afforded great honor and care to the handling of their dead.
Our ancestors have a saying, treat the dead as if they are still alive. They believe the dead person has simply moved to a new place and that they will continue their daily life once they reach the other side, wearing clothes, eating and drinking. So you have to provide them with their day-to-day items in the coffin. These burial items show that the Bo were very advanced in agriculture. They knew how to produce silk and very fine linen by cultivating silkworms.
These costumes are directly modeled from the clothes found on Bo corpses. The coffin is authentic as well. The skills to make these items can be readily found in rural China today. But what no one has accomplished in over 400 years is to get a 500-pound coffin up to the top of a cliff.
I think the method of hanging varies from region to region. For instance, in Matangba, there are holes found at the bottom, and from the pattern, you can tell they probably have created the 栈道, which is some narrow footway perched on pegs winding up the cliff. Then they just carry the coffin up from the bottom. Another method mentioned in the archives was to send someone up there first, then attach ropes to the coffin and pull it up. The team from Chang'an village, testing one theory of how the coffins may have been hanged, used only the materials thought to be available to the bow. It took 12 people 3 days to recreate this theory, but for the bow, this epic funeral ceremony would have been a routine event.
There are still many coffins dotting the landscape of Southwest China. They could reveal many clues about the mysterious life and death of the bow. Hao Men's team is driving further into the remote northern corner of Yunnan. The roads get rougher. The convoy winds slowly through the rough terrain, proceeding at a walking pace. Having failed to reach the coffins at Doushaguan, the team is hoping for greater success in the valley of Longma. Their search may yield more clues to this mysterious and uncharted region. This is the end of the road. The entire team must now walk the last few miles to this new and unexplored coffin site.
There have been rumors about the existence of hanging coffins at Longma for quite a long time. But because of the remoteness of the location and the transport problems, no one from outside has ever been there before. We don't know what we're going to find. Of course, it's very exciting to be the first ones there, with a chance to solve some mysteries, a chance to reveal this mysterious phenomenon to the world.
Liu Hong has already visited the site to organize the building of some scaffolding.
I was very excited because the hanging coffins were so high up on the mountain cliff. We could only see them from afar. They were very, very mysterious.
Although it's a long march to Longma, once they get there, reaching the coffins should be a whole lot easier than Doushaguan. After a 2-hour walk, the team finally reaches Longma, home to a few dozen villagers, and site of an unexplored burial ground of the Bo people. Scattered along the length of the cliff, there are 7 caves, which could contain coffins and skeletons of the Bo. Now it is just a matter of time. The scaffolding is already well under construction, built from bamboo in the same traditional style used in China for several centuries. But even when it's complete, the scaffolding will only reach some of the caves on the Longma cliff. Ji Xueping has decided to send climbers to some of the more inaccessible caves.
I guess you're about 6 feet. Liu Hong, you need to keep moving to your left, just across a little ridge of rock.
Even with modern climbing equipment, getting into these caves is difficult and dangerous.
I will make a try.
Okay, come back down and we'll just run the new line across that.
For Liu Hong, hanging down has proved impossible. The only chance of getting into the caves is to haul himself up.
Yeah.
发现木头也没有那个棺材。口子很平整的堆放到山，也放的位置很好。
Terry, you see anything in the cave?
It's fairly deep, so I'm not too sure what's in there. I'll turn my headlamp on and have a look. There's a piece of wood here that seems to be, it looks like it's put in as a wedge, but also maybe where the coffin was sitting on.
Can you take a small piece of wood for us?
Yes. The way it's been chiseled, it fits in the rock like a jigsaw puzzle.
都有人活动过的痕迹。
We found wooden and stone supports, but no coffins. Whether they never got round to installing the coffins in the first place, or whether they were damaged due to vandalism, we don't know. But one thing is for sure, those caves have signs of human
但是
activities.
那些洞都是有人活动过的。
At one time, within living memory, there were over 12 coffins sticking out here at Long Ma. For the archaeologists, their hopes of solving the mystery are now pinned on the one remaining coffin in the highest of the caves.
I think the most fascinating question is not how they do it, but why they do it. My suspicion is that it has to be something very spiritual. As Chinese, we are not used to seeing coffins exposed. We consider something very important and sacred. And here, these coffins are all open to the elements.
The vast majority of the Chinese population are Han people, originally from the north of the country, but there are still over 50 minority ethnic groups in China, with 24 concentrated in the mountains of Yunnan. Throughout China, death, the funeral ceremony, and the worship of ancestors are all of great significance. Different tribes have different ways of showing it. The ideal place for a Han tomb is in the ground, on the side of a hill, overlooking the living. This combination is thought to bring good fortune to the descendants. What is surprising about the hanging coffins is that it is the complete opposite. Perched up in the air, ungrounded, and separated from the living family. This reveals a lot about the Bo's worldview, according to Guo Jing, an expert on the minority tribes of China.
像那个玄关一般出现的地方都是有岩石的地方。
Hanging coffins generally appear where there are rocks, and rocky places have special meanings for many tribes. Some view mountains as a stairway to heaven. If the Bo believed that the spirits of the dead ancestors lived in heaven, then maybe the hanging coffins were a bridge between this world and the next. A stepping stone between the living and the dead.
The Bo wrote nothing down about why or how they hung their coffins. But the ruling Han people kept diligent records of the entire Ming Dynasty. Hidden in this chronicle of China are a few clues about the Bo people and their coffins. Professor Ling Xiang has been studying the hanging coffins mystery for over 30 years. He believes it came about partly for practical reasons and partly through spiritual belief.
The Bo people believe that after death, the human soul will rise up to heaven. To make this journey easier, you needed to bury your dead high up on a cliff, so the soul will be closer to heaven. The other reason is more practical. They wanted to protect their coffins from being defiled by enemies or wild animals, so they put them out of reach. I think these two factors of practical need and spiritual belief came together, and that's how the custom of hanging coffins began.
Most of our information about the Bo comes from where they died, but there are a few locations, high in the mountains, where we can discover something about how they lived. One name given to the Bo people is Dou Tian, which means fight the sky. They not only defied gravity with their hanging coffins, but they would fly in the face of any adversity.
They thrive in terms of taking nature as a challenge, to an extent that there is a story that circulates that they would make themselves wear very thin clothes in the winter, and whereas in the summer they would wear very heavy overcoats just to have that challenge. What remained for me, and as well as others, to see is within the former territory of the Bo people, we find these remnants of their past.
This is one of the Bo people's most legendary mountain strongholds, Lingxiao, the castle in the sky.
The Bo people lived in a state of constant warfare. They were always being attacked by the army of the Ming Dynasty. So they would find a suitable mountain with good natural defenses and then fortify it with walls and gates so that they could defend and protect themselves. Mountaintop forts like this were a unique part of Bo culture.
The castle in the sky is like a lost world. It lies largely untouched, hidden, and unexplored. He Zeyu is one of the first academics to set foot here.
There are still plenty of relics here. One is the fortress gate. Also, you can clearly see the stoves the Bo people used at that time to cook food on. Those are unmistakable. and also underground tunnels with holes for observation, so they could see who was coming.
At the top of the winding path, past the fortifications, there is a plateau where the Bo people retreated to in times of trouble, safely nestled in the clouds. The one man who lives here now built his house with stones from the tumbled-down Bo buildings. His water comes from their well. This is the greatest collection of unexplored evidence about the life of the Bo people.
I'll say there's still a lot of things waiting for us to discover. According to the locals here, every year on June 19th, the descendants of the Bo people come here to light incense and pay respects to their ancestors. So June 19th might very well be the day when the Bo people in Lingxiao Fort were defeated.
The defeat at Lingxiao was a bitter blow to the Bo people, but they still survived. 100 miles away, another mountaintop saw the last bloody stand of the Bo.
The biggest battle took place here in Jiusi Mountain behind me.
In the late 16th century, 40,000 Bo people were slaughtered in a gruesome massacre by the Han.
The troops of the Ming Dynasty were tightly encircled around the mountain and cut off the supply of water and food.
The Ming soldiers laid siege for 10 days, biding their time, waiting for the day of a big Bo festival.
The Bo were singing, dancing, and drinking a lot. In the end, after a great celebration, they were all drunk. The Ming troops took the chance and, using the mountain paths, attacked the mountain from all sides. This was a most brutal and intense fight. After this battle, the Bo people were almost wiped out.
The Bo have achieved a magical, mythological status in China. Many who live under the shadow of the coffins, especially the older villagers, have legends to tell. There are many tales of the Bo people flying. It's not surprising when you see where they lived and how they buried their dead. But history and legend are both subject to bias. Perhaps the truth of the Bo will only emerge through archaeological exploration of their hanging coffins. At last, the scaffolding is ready. Ji Xueping and Liu Xu are ready to climb up to the last remaining coffin at Longma. It's a 300-foot climb, but at the top of a rickety bamboo scaffold, archaeologist Liu Xu finally gets a chance to get close to a bow coffin.
这棺材靠外面这儿已经是被风蚀毁坏掉了，可能有半截已经落到这个悬崖底下去了。那么这个棺材呢，是用看样子应该是用楠木来做成的，把内部掏空，把内部掏空掉，然后像这个表面经过初步的加工，它有初步加工的痕迹。
On close examination, we found the coffin here to be unique because it is made from a single block of wood. Personally, I believe that these coffins, with this kind of curved lid and a rough manufacturing style, are possibly from a very early era.
The only way to accurately determine the age of the coffin is by carbon dating. But Liu Xu believes that this coffin could come from at least the Ming Dynasty. It could be over 1,000 years old. This would make it the oldest coffin in Southwest China. All they need to find now to make this a complete haul is a bow skeleton. And there is one cave left to explore.
This is a natural cave, unlike the ones we found in Chang'an and Doushaguan. From talking to the locals, it seems that no one has ever climbed up here before.
Success at last. The coffin from this cave has rotted or fallen away, but a valuable scattering of ancient human bones remain on the floor of the cave.
Looks like a rebel.
Oh, no,
this is a老骨的一端，但是已经破碎了。
你手电可以关上，我照一张相。
Encouraged by his discovery, Ji Xueping decides to head deeper into the cave.
It's like scar. Oh, we're almost complete. The skeleton we found had its skull relatively intact. I consider this to be a highly important sample for our research.
The
skull is especially important because it will give us lots of information about the ethnic origin of the body.
There's the rest of the skull here. The jaw.
Yeah.
The jaw.
You see the jaw?
Yeah.
Oh, wow! Oh! 下颌骨，它掰开那个石头，下颌骨就出来了。哦。Is that true?
Yeah.
Oh.
The jaw is here.
Wow, wow, fantastic. Because of the absence of burial articles, it's hard to identify the age of the skeleton. To do so, we have to carry out a carbon dating test. But we can tell it is of medium height, likely to be a male. The rest is hard to tell. It needs facial reconstruction expertise. And I think if we want to identify the ethnic origin of the corpse, our primary means will be to use DNA analysis.
This precious 1,000-year-old skull could be the clue that finally reveals the mysterious identity of the Bold people. Many scholars believe there must have been some survivors of the Bo massacre at Jiusi Mountain. During the exploration at Longma, there were many rumors of Bo descendants living nearby. In particular, members of a family called He, who live in denial of any connection to the hanging coffins.
It is inconceivable that all the Bo people were killed in one go. Even now, there is a folk rhyme in Gong County. Yo family is from the Li tribe, Ban family is from the Miao tribe, He family is from the Hanging on Cliff tribe. This is a legend that tells us that the people with the name of He are the descendants of Bo people.
A few hours from Longma, hidden in the mountain mist, we track down these people. Their family name is He. After much conversation, they agree to talk to us about the possible connection with the Bo. Could the rumors be true? Could this be the face of the Bo?
但是挂哀字的是你们知道吗？啊，这个悬冠啊，挂哀字。
悬冠我们是知道嘛，知道嘛，但是具体情况是什么详细问题我们就不知道，就说不清楚嘛。对。 这种现在这个话还不能够对外头了嘛？
哎，对。
老祖先没有讲嘛，我们
就是说你们的祖先，就是你们的人老人是不是就是跟你们讲过？那么这个玄关，他们就是你们的始祖。
有没有问题？就是说他们不能给我们讲详文嘛，只能够旁边有些人给我们开玩笑嘛，就说别人讲嘛，别人就是有些开玩笑哦，你们是挂哀字啊，咋就是这样讲嘛。
祖先有没有告诉你们为什么把棺材挂到这个崖下面去？有没有告诉？
没有，
不说这个
啊，没有说。
为什么？
原来嘛，就是听那些这传说，就是我信佛的，在原来几百年以前，靠干死得很，那跟孔明设计整穷这信佛的。 就说你要信佛能干死的，如果是你挂那个挨个叫风吹就更干死，更要干死。就信佛的就把这个老祖先也挂墙挨个去，这次就造就到这样，就是这个风一吹啊，反而信佛真垮下去去了，就这样等于说，就没干死就
就是从那里就不卖了。
你该听得
啊，历史就有那点根源的。
对，我当时就是，比如说这个玄关，那么你们还是崇拜不啊？你们家里边对自己的祖先还是崇拜不？
啊，这个说自己祖先什么不崇拜啊？这只要说真的是了解，有人统计了，是不是？因为在别人的传说，就是我就是前我讲的嘛，人家都说你是这样那样，那如果我们不承认，你不信嘛。 那承认起来，好像在这个地方，人家说你真的是这边的嘛，就给你教育了。
为什么？啊？为什么？
你看他们可能就知道嘛。他一个是家属多，他家属多嘛，他家属多，他多，别人就不敢轻你。
他个家属多，别人就不敢欺负他们。他们在这个地方就是，他们的人少，只有几个人。那么如果是一说出来，那么必然民族就会欺负他们，就是这种情况了。啊。
你们现在就是家里有人死了以后，怎么样的把他葬的？葬在土里面还是怎么样的？
还不是跟大汉一样嘛？还不是这一样的，就跟当地旧的人家咋个做，我们就咋个做了，都是一样做的。
也是这样。那你们有没有想过怎么样的把这个棺材挂在上面去啊？
啊，我们没想过。电完之后，后头怕有3、4代哟、4、5代哟，我也不晓得。
起码说是应该是2、300年没那么干。
还有2、300年没那干过。
10代左右。也就是说，就是这个树嘛，这样子长在岸上了嘛，就说已经都到没了是没了，那个还想干啊？现在干到大汉族，我们就长在一块，就那个说这个地点可以问噻。
他说了就是说。
The once mighty Bo have been reduced to a few small clusters, living in denial of their mysterious and unique history, assimilated at last, as the Han always wanted. We don't know if this He family are true descendants of the Bo. But 21st century science might solve this 1,000-year-old mystery, and prove the identity of the bow once and for all. The skull found in the cave in Longma has been brought here to Kunming, the capital of Yunnan. It will be analyzed using the very latest DNA techniques and to discover if there are any living bow descendants.
I think it is reasonable to suspect that there will be some surviving people that has integrated or assimilated into the local areas. We have even heard of some kind of ancestor worship ceremony that is done after midnight, and only the male member are allowed to go. So I definitely think that modern science has something to contribute.
Su Bing is a specialist in the analysis of ancient DNA.
This is kind of joint effort between geneticists and archaeologists. So this kind of project can provide a lot of information about the cultural history of the Asian populations. We sample the bones from the field, and then we get the bones to the lab, and then we need to clean the bones because there are contaminations from the environment and contaminations from people who are handling the samples.
These are the same techniques used to identify the victims of massacres found in mass graves where there is no other means of identification. But with ancient bones, it's much harder to extract the DNA.
Getting ancient DNA is not an easy job. First of all, you need to find the site. And also, whether you can get DNA depends on how well the DNA is preserved.
Su Bing has spent the last few years gathering DNA samples from different ethnic groups all over China and Asia. He has built up a massive database showing the genetic makeup of hundreds of different tribal minorities.
There is a lot of discussions as where these people come from and who are their ancestors. So by doing genetic analysis, we'll be able to compare the genetic structure between the Asian population and the current populations.
It's a slow process. This is the first skull to be tested. It could take months or years to extract enough DNA to determine if there are any living descendants of the Bow people. For a truly conclusive result, Su Bing will need the DNA from 20 different Bow skulls. Early indications from the DNA analysis suggest that at least one of the surviving tribes has links to the Bow. But that's not all our skull from Longma can tell us. By using modern forensic science, we can build a sneak preview of the ancient Bow. By building up layers of muscle, tissue, and skin on a model of the skull, facial reconstruction technicians have created this bow head. This is the long-lost face of the middle-aged man who spent the last 1,000 years resting in the cave at Longma. This is the face of the Bow. This scientific and archaeological journey has unlocked many secrets of the mysterious Bow people. But there is still much to learn. At Suma Wan alone, there are over 90 coffins that no one has studied.
This is heavily stacked up. If some of those beams down below is not secured well, it can just have a whole avalanche. Because there are 11 of them right up here, one above each other. I think the only way to really get close to them and conduct any research and conservation will be to build an entire scaffolding, like a whole facade.
The Bo people left an astonishing legacy, clear for all to see. They may have disappeared, but the symbols of their culture still cling defiantly to the cliffs of Southwest China, reaching up closer to heaven.
Ever since I started studying these coffins, I figure in my mind that I may have one new option for where I want to be after I die. Besides being cremated or buried, I could be hanged too. Perhaps, who knows, one of these days I may be among them, being part of the mystery.